Great. Well, hi, everybody. So excited to do this webinar here with Joanne and Preston. We'll introduce ourselves in a minute. Thank you all for joining. It sounds like we have a really good turnout today, so appreciate it. I know this topic is something a lot of people have been interested in, so we're excited to talk through all things connected TV and sustainers today. Our agenda, briefly, just to go over that, we'll talk about what is connected TV and how it works for those of you who need a little bit more information there. We'll talk about why now. Why is this the right moment to try this out? We'll talk about creative considerations and some best practices there. And then we'll talk about how to build a sustainer program and what to think about when you're incorporating connected TV to it. And then we'll talk about results and reporting and how to measure success. As Nick said, feel free to type in questions into the Q&A or into the chat. We'll also have time at the end of each section. We'll pause for questions also, and then at the end of the presentation as well. So again, I'm Adva Prizo. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at More Digital. Super excited to be here. More Digital provides audience-first digital brand raising, fundraising, engagement, and activation expertise to nonprofits across verticals, and it's all powered by our co-op Simeo cloud. So More Enterprise brought together digital experts from across the company and around the industry to really activate these tech innovations front and center for nonprofits that really want to bring their programs to the next level in a way that's really truly integrated. With that, I'll turn it over to Joanne to introduce herself.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, I'm Joanne Wilson, the VP of Advancement Operations at the Humane Society of the United States. And in this role, one of the programs that I have managed is our direct response media. So thank you for inviting me to participate today, Ava.
Thank you so much for joining us. And Preston.
Yep, and I'm Preston Limble. I'm the Senior Director of Digital Media at More Digital. Past year helping build out the programmatic department here.
Yeah, and our info is here. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, reach out. If you have any questions after this, of course, my email is there too. All right, let's start with a quick audience poll. You can put your answers into, let's say, the Q&A section here. So do you currently use programmatic advertising? So type in 1 if yes, you use programmatic display. Type in 2 if yes, connected TV video ads. 3 if yes, both display and connected TV video ads. 4, no, we don't do any programmatic advertising. And 5, I have no idea what you're talking about, which is perfectly fine too. So let's see. What are we getting here, folks?
Mostly 2s and 3s, I think.
Mostly 2s and 3s. Okay. Yeah. I see a couple 5s. I see some 4s. Okay, there's a good mix here.
Now, for you 5s, you do have an idea about what we're talking about. If you watch TV at all with any ads on it, you'll see that you do know what we're talking about.
That's true. And we'll talk through it. So you will come away from this hopefully knowing a lot about this type of program. All right. All right, so Preston, you want to talk about what CTV is?
Sure. So connected TV, it's slightly intuitive. It's just television that is connected to the internet. And this can include a smart TV where you can access apps directly from your television menu, or an over-the-top device like a Roku, Fire Stick, or even a gaming console. And programmatic advertising is just the method of using data to place digital ads across any device that is connected to the internet. So when someone says CTV, most people automatically think about Netflix or Amazon Prime, but there are actually 3 buckets of inventory included in a CTV campaign: live streaming, video on demand, and free TV. So first is live streaming content, especially through virtual cable providers like Sling or DirecTV Stream. The majority of Americans have cut the cord, but they don't cut cable. They just swap a cable box for an app. So now we can place a CTV buy like a cable buy and hone in on specific networks and content verticals like news networks, and it feels like a national placement. The second group, and this is the one we're probably all most familiar with, it's video on demand. And this includes the bingeable and original content on platforms like Hulu, Paramount Plus, Peacock, and Discovery Plus. This category also includes the ads you see when you log into your network app with your cable credentials. So unlike a streaming service, these network apps are included in your cable subscription without a monthly fee and function like the on-demand section of your old cable box. So when you enter your Comcast or DirecTV Stream account information, you can access a full library of video on-demand content, which is all completely ad-supported. Then finally, we have free TV, also called freemium or FAST, free ad-supported television. And this is the fastest growing sector of streaming television, especially in the 55 plus demo. And that's likely for two reasons. First, it's free. The average household is already paying around $100 on video content. And second, these services tend to have an older library of content that resonates just well with the older demo. And this would include Pluto TV and Tubi TV, and now even services like Peacock and Sling are getting into the game, offering like limited ad-supported content for free. And again, all this is important for us because it's all ad-supported and can be part of like a one-to-one targeted programmatic campaign. So like I said, the best part of all of this is the ability to buy television in a highly targeted way. And this is made possible by programmatic ad buying, which allows us to buy impressions for specific people, regardless of what they are watching, which completely flips the script on how television has been bought in the past 80 years. So here is an overview of how it works in the back end. So on the buy side is a DSP or demand side platform, and that's just our access point to the open internet. And for us, our DSP is the trade desk. Now there are two key pieces that we have access to in the DSP, and that's data and inventory. Now on the data side, for example, this is where we receive audience files from a co-op to identify specific individuals in an acquisition model or a donor list. Then on the sell side are the TV networks and publishers selling their ad space, and we meet in the middle at the ad exchange, and then just like any other auction, the highest bidder wins. So here is an example of how this process works from a user perspective. So here I clicked to the ABC News. As I'm scrolling, you'll quickly learn a couple of things about me. I previously donated to Save the Children, and I was previously looking at pants, and now I'm being retargeted. And I have another clip here. So the reason I saw those banner ads is because of what was happening in the background. In this clip, I'm sure you've all seen this before, this gray bar in the bottom left-hand corner. And this is that process. These are data and inventory calls from various supply-side vendors. And this is just the technology in action for all those advertisers bidding in real time to reach me. It's kind of creepy, but it's very cool.
So we have a question from Nicole. What do you consider an older demo? We usually are looking, what, like 60 plus would be considered older?
Yeah, and for a lot of clients, 55 plus as well. So it depends on the client, but yeah, 55 to 60.
Yeah. Great. All right, so why now? So now that you're a programmatic pro, why is now the right time to add this to your fundraising mix? Well, streaming reached critical mass in 2020. So really, in one word, if I had to summarize it, it's volume. Connected TV has really been around since 2002, but as we all know, it was really 2020 with the start of the pandemic that really cemented video streaming into the daily lives of most Americans. And the time spent streaming increased 74% from 2019 to 2020, as you can see here on the slide. And the largest gains are in those older demographics. So not only is television streaming more common, but it's also more common with the typical donor demographic. And later we'll also talk about how it's an excellent tool for expanding into new and diverse audiences as well. So let's talk about the shift in viewership. So in 2020, that really was the year that changed television consumption. 2021 was really the year of what we call the plus, with the launch of and adoption of various streaming services. And then last year was really the year of ad-supported viewing. So according to Nielsen, in July of 2022, so about half a year ago, streaming overtook broadcast and cable in terms of time spent with television. Another recent study, almost half of Americans are spending more time with ad-supported streaming. And a ComScore study said that ad-supported streaming is growing at a faster rate than ad-free viewing. So that's really, really important. And here's why that's happening. US households are continuing to increase the number of streaming services they use, but in most cases, the subscription budget that they have for their household remains relatively flat. How is that? That's through ads, right? So when a show comes out, let's say on Paramount Plus, that I want to see, I might switch my Hulu subscription from ad-free to ad-supported, save $5 and pick up Paramount Plus for free. So we went really from one ad-free to two ad-supported services. And it's really this consumer shift to watch ads that creates this really unique opportunity for one-to-one television buying. And so you can see here another example of just that shift in viewership with streaming up from July 21 to July 22, almost 23%. So again, a couple more stats if you need to make the case for this. Again, on the shift to ad-supported, according to a streaming report by Hub Entertainment Research, 69% of those who saw relevant ads really enjoyed their streaming experience versus 48% when the ads weren't relevant. So again, not only are we seeing this big shift to ad-supported, and there's some stats here about that as well, but Joanne will talk about this a little bit later. It's really, really important to make sure that you have the right creative targeted to the right people. So this really is a one-to-one targeting effort, and you really need to have relevant content for this to work. So that's important. So it's not just, talk about this a little bit. It's not just necessarily taking, any video we have and throwing it up there. There's actually, we've found a lot of best practices around that, which we'll talk about. So let's talk a little bit. I mentioned reaching diverse audiences. So first of all, it's really important to consider the audience demographics here. So you'll see here is the ethnic profile for linear television on the left bar. And there, 2/3 are white with over a quarter either Hispanic or Black. And now let's compare that to a couple of the streaming services we talked about earlier. Now we're looking at over half of the audience is either Hispanic or Black. Not only are we talking about more precise audience targeting, but this is a really, really important key to extending your message to new audiences, which I know is really critical and top of mind for nonprofits right now, especially as, the last several months, we've seen some dips in giving and ability for some platforms that we've really depended on in the past to bring in revenue, that has been slowing down. There's more competition. And so It's really important to get out there to new audiences. And this is just one final slide before I hand it off to Joanne to talk about the fun stuff. These are just headlines we've seen lately from those following connected TV advertising. We've been waiting for this moment for years, really, where we have so many ad-supported streaming services. So in the industry, this is a big deal.
There was a question.
All right.
Do we think this data might be a bit skewed towards most urban households that have better access to broadband internet? And if so, I'd be curious what that means for targeting.
So, yeah, so I will say that we can target a wide range of the population, both urban and rural, and we have seen that with our campaigns and our the different studies that we get from our DSP, the trade desk, that it's not just urban areas, that it's rural areas as well included and we include those in all of our campaigns. So I wouldn't worry too much about the data being skewed, especially from our DSP targeting standpoint.
Okay. All right, so this is the fun stuff I heard.
Yeah.
So you've got your budget, you've decided that you're going to move ahead with this campaign. How are you going to tell your story? You want, at HSUS, we've got a very robust library of brand approved media ready assets, photos, videos, etc. Whenever we go out into the field, we take really, really great recordings, whether it's pictures, stills, or videos, so that we can use them for efforts like this. Not everybody has that kind of resource, but if this is the case for you and you've got a pretty good brand library, know that you'll be saving a little bit of money on your launch because you don't have to go out and purchase some of those things or even spend extra money filming because you've already got that stuff, right? But when you're building your spot, you want to keep some things in mind, these creative considerations. Make sure that your story is engaging and compelling. We've all seen a lot of DRTV spots and CTV spots out there, and what they have in common is that they get straight to the point and they're telling a great story about the org and what it's doing. You want to include your logo and your URL wherever you can. You'll see a spot or two later on that demonstrates this. Make sure that you've got a clear call to action, especially at the end with after you've utilized sound with voiceover and other effects to catch people's attention, especially if they're sort of multitasking as they're watching your spot. You want your spots ideally for CTV, and this is different to DRTV, 30 seconds in length to utilize the most available inventory and supplement that with corresponding display ads of 15 seconds. And we would even advocate for 6-second pre-roll footage, which you can add to people who are gaming or that sort of activity online. They get that quick 6-second pre-roll. Doesn't have to be Lily's Garden. It can be about HSUS's programs. And then finally, you have a URL, you've got your vanity. Develop a campaign landing page that matches the creative and the call to action if the donor goes through that direct link. So we know that different creative resonates with different audiences, and there's so much testing that you can do in CTV in a relatively short period of time. Just like telemarketing, you're able to get an early read and pivot pretty quickly as needed with CTV. For example, in DRTV, QR codes have suppressed response, which was a very odd thing to see. But then you go over to CTV, and as you can see from the two examples provided here, the one that had the QR code actually had a larger response. It drove more traffic to our site than the one without. We haven't quite figured out why that is yet, but it is a thing. And we were able to do some pretty good testing around this for the HSUS spots in CTV.
Yeah, it's so interesting to see the difference between DRTV and what works in CTV, and oftentimes it can be fairly different. So that was an interesting test.
So this is the HSUS spot that we launched, and you can see all of the things that I discussed in the previous slide as best practices in here.
All around us, innocent animals suffer from exploitation, neglect, and cruelty, trapped in inhumane conditions, hunted for trophies or illegal trade, victims of lab testing. The Humane Society of the United States is there, fighting for all animals. Join the fight. Be a hero for those who can't speak for themselves. Just $19 a month, that's 63 cents per day, can make a difference. Visit helpprotectanimals.org today.
There, we jammed a lot of our work into that 30-second spot. But we've also seen, as you know, as in this ad for Shriners on the left, that adding a toll-free number and a vanity URL, not a short, to the ad lifts response. We don't actually see that people call the number. They're not doing that. We had maybe 3 total hits to that QR code throughout the entire campaign. But in both of these cases, these are the 2 spots that had the highest response on our websites. It's really, really interesting. And maybe something about the impression of legitimacy that's making people feel more comfortable. Then they go online and they search, which is exactly why you need to have sort of a really well built out back end with search engine optimization before you even go up online with a campaign. We also test creative such as point of view. So Shriners is an excellent example of this, where they were able to test an adult's point of view versus a child's point of view. And Moore's Video Creative Agency, TCM, along with their creative director, worked closely with the digital media team to create these spots and different iterations to figure out what works best for different audiences. I can tell you that for the Shriners spots that I tend to see the most, I am getting the ones that feature the child's point of view, possibly because they know that I'm a parent and I do parent-like things online. So retargeting is working there. And finally, what was really exciting for our team was that for the HSUS CTV program, we saw a 10% increase in sustainers on the file. And this is more than double what the benchmarks that we've seen previously. We did have a lot of stuff happening at the time that we were running this test. So I'll speak to that again in a second. But we also saw a large lift through our brand awareness study, and Preston will talk about that a little bit later, for those exposed to the ad versus who were not exposed to the ad, especially amongst my favorite demographic, 45 to 64-year-old. I will not tell you which end I fall on there, but that's a highly coveted demographic. I will also highlight here, and before we move on to the next sections, that many donors do not actually make that donation directly to the devices provided. And by device, I mean, they're not always going to that QR code. They're not calling that phone number. They're not even going to that donation form that you have kindly provided them in the ad and through retargeting. What they are doing is doing that search online. So it's a technical consideration that Preston is going to talk about later, about how we know that they were served the spot and then went on to the site. But you have to really work with your data and analytics and budgets team to define what success looks like with these campaigns. That'll involve setting baselines so that you can track increased traffic to your site. When we were doing this, it happened to be right around when we rescued all of those beagles, and that turned out to be tricky to measure things, but we also were using Simio Cloud for our data, so it was easiest for us to track who had been served the spot and then went on to make a donation. But in other areas, we looked at a month as a baseline where we didn't have a whole lot going on, and then ran an ad in that same time period and measured the variance between the traffic on that sort of ho-hum, not much happening day versus when we were running spot, to help us figure out what the lift to our program was. And this is a spot where we're going to pause and take some questions. I see that there are a few.
Yep, definitely some good questions here. First question, Preston, maybe this is for you. Do CTV hosting platforms, maybe they mean the DSPs allow you, oh, you mean like where you would see it on your screen, allow you to skip ads after a few seconds like YouTube? So no, right?
No. Yeah, these are non-skippable.
Yeah, these are ads that are showing up on your TV, on an app that you are, where you're watching, let's say, a Hulu TV show. So these are not skippable, which is really great. All right, another question. There were some questions about budgets, which we can talk about later at the end, if that's okay. We'll just hold on those. Another question, in DRTV, can we target different audiences with different creative? Yes, but it's linear TV,
yeah.
if you're talking about DRTV, so it's much harder and much costlier, right? DRTV is extremely, well, it's a lot more expensive than connected TV. So being nimble there, you absolutely can, but I think it's a little trickier. Preston, any thoughts on that?
No, but I mean, a good reach extension of linear is CTV, and yeah,
Yeah.
I'll get into that here in a bit too.
Yeah, so usually when we're running DRTV linear ads, and we pair that really with connected TV and display to really lift the response in all channels, and that really definitely helps. So that's a good point, Preston. Let's see what else.
There seem to be a lot of budget questions.
Budget questions we'll take at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, I can say just very briefly, excuse me, that this is a lot more accessible budget-wise than you might think. So we can talk a little bit more about that later.
True. Joanne, do you have data on CTV related to sustainable donations over a 12-month period?
No.
Well, we haven't been live for that long, right?
No,
So,
we have not been doing this for long enough to be able to answer that, Henry, but please feel free to reach out to me via my email and we can talk some more.
yeah. So this was, I know the test we did was over was it a 3-month period, right?
Yes, ours was over
Yeah.
a 3-month period, yes.
So that's what these results are over, which is really incredible. I mean, anyone can tell you a 10% lift in sustainers is pretty amazing. All right. Okay. Should we move on?
All right. Yes. So I'll go into how to build a sustainer program and specific audience strategies. All right. So with CTV advertising, it combines the power of video storytelling with the precision of digital media. And there are a number of different applications, including emergency response, brand raising, lead gen, advocacy, even event participation. But here, we're really here to focus on not only fundraising, but how to generate sustainers. So historically, what the industry has used and what we are used to is targeting demographic profiles and third-party segments, including affinity and in-market audiences. But we are really leaning into enhanced targeting options, which are all built around first-party data, such as building lookalikes, building models from your first-party data and co-op data, and also scoring your records using co-op data. So being able to leverage first-party data makes this cookieless future less of an issue, because with your own data, you're not relying on their previous usage or behavior to determine who you want to talk to. So there are 4 key targeting strategies that we can use to acquire sustainers. First is we can utilize co-op data to build an acquisition model specifically for sustainers. And then for lapsed reactivation, we can score your lapsed file for those most likely to convert, or we can target canceled sustainers. For renewing and upgrading, we can score your active donor file for that sustainer propensity, or add or refresh or new to file donors and align with your email welcome series for that upgrade ask. And yeah, just really just be able to leverage these audiences in a much bigger way. So there's also code targeting, and this can be direct mail. This could be aligning with any of your telemarketing efforts you may have if you have like a specific list that you want to upgrade. You can also code target email and align with any sustainer specific email, or align where that falls in your welcome series. Again, there's just a lot of synergy here where we can provide that surround sound to, which we found a lot of success in providing lift to those other conversion channels. So we partner with Simio Cloud and apply their data, which fuels our campaigns. Simio has data on over 250 million US adults and combines that with donation history from hundreds of nonprofits, which creates the best audience for your message by focusing on the people most likely to become valuable donors for you. So when we're launching your campaign, we're going to onboard your CRM files, and Simio can enhance that donor file by appending additional addresses, emails, phone numbers, and even different characteristics, such in the case of HSUS's case, if they're a pet owner. So this just helps further the performance for modeling and or scoring those segments, and just increasing the match rate as well in our platform. And again, so just adding that co-op data really adds another layer of information that helps find those most likely to upgrade to a sustainer. So here's an example. So like, according to your records, Rebecca last gift was $25 with the previous high being $40. But looking at co-op data, she is actually a sustainer to another organization and has given $1,000. So she could be a high value donor to you. So again, the ability to append and utilize co-op data, makes this even more valuable. So we are looking at a number of different aggregated data sources to create those audiences and activate through a number of different channels. But the key here, and what makes this so valuable, is the ability to send all of the campaign performance, exposure, just all digital performance information back into your co-op, and in our case, our direct connection with Simio to improve models for attribution, for additional reporting. So having this continuous loop is just critical for your success. And since we manage the entire campaign in-house, we are able to make optimizations and adjustments in real time and push spin to the best performing audiences, which has shown to increase ROI.
Yes, and this is just an example we'll take you through of the user experience. For example, so Preston just talked about this woman named Rebecca and her profile that we've taken from Moore's Simio Cloud, and we have her data and lots of other people that we've identified as being likely to become sustainers for a specific organization. So for example, Rebecca and her husband Tom are watching The Handmaid's Tale on Hulu, and then they'll see a Save the Children commercial. So then last night, let's say she didn't donate after she saw the commercial on Hulu, but she's watching a news segment on her tablet and has a second exposure about the urgent need. This provides another touch point with consistent messaging to increase frequency. And then Rebecca sees, let's say, a corresponding display ad while she is searching for a recipe on her computer. And then potentially she might receive a direct mail piece as well. So she's also part of our direct mail list. And let's say then she searches for Save the Children after an ad exposure, instead of going to the direct landing page from the URL in the connected TV ad. Or she might click on a Facebook ad and then make a donation. So oftentimes, right, we see email, we'll see social media, especially like Facebook and search, be the bottom of the funnel where people actually convert. But when you really look at all of the attribution the right way, you can see that the connected TV ad really drove this person to interacting with the various ads that we have, with the various communications, and then lifting response on those other channels. So again, she might click an email and then make a donation. And Joanne will talk a little bit about that component of everything kind of lifting all boats, right?
Yeah, so that seems like there were a lot of touch points.
Yeah.
But to be, this is Adva and Preston, when we were pulling this together, we were discussing whether, you know, that's why the QR code is working, because it's making a different kind of mental impression on people and making it stick versus just having the ad playing in the background. But just as Preston walked through, the CTV programs are designed to bring donors down that funnel from awareness to conversion. And like all digital campaigns, every single touch is trackable, so we can see the details of the first exposure and subsequent exposure all the way down to that last impression that drives the conversion. So I'll reiterate here that this is where you work really closely with your analytics teams to set baseline so you can track your web traffic and determine whether it's unique and it's big and it's different from any time before, or if it's just another day for you, right? And this is a great space for you to go back and do matchbacks, especially with Simeo Cloud and with your mail. You may see lift across offline channels as well, which is why it's really important to quantify the impact on those bottom funnel channels in order to understand the full impact of your campaign. It's causing a lift across channels that you may not even consider.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that's really new and very exciting for us is that now we can, in our own programmatic ad platform, and Preston and media team is all hands on keys. We can take a 360 view at the campaign impact to break down the barriers into walled gardens like Meta and Google to assess those conversion rates across paid social, paid search, and email, like we were saying, for those that were exposed to the campaign versus the tactic average. So that's part of our reporting too. And so, yeah, one thing to go back to what Joanne was saying, it's really important that people know that this isn't really a direct attribution play, again, like search or social in some cases, or email, or even direct mail. Really, the ability to measure the impact of our programmatic efforts on conversion channels is really key to understanding the impact of your digital investment. And I think more importantly, we can close the attribution gap that previously existed between programmatic campaigns like connected TV and paid efforts in Google, Bing, Facebook, and email. So again, this is just an example of the conversion lift results that we provide. And Preston will talk in a little bit about the detailed technical aspects of how we do this in big picture. Obviously, there's a lot more to it, but he'll talk about that a little bit. So this shows how connected TV really lifted response in these other more direct attribution channels. Before we move on, I know there's a couple more questions. I think we may have answered a couple with what we just went through. Questions about how we measure lift via Simeo data. Preston's going to go over that in just a minute. And let's see. In Rebecca's example, do we collect data that indicates she clicked through the ad display on Hulu? So again, so with connected TV, there's nothing clickable. You can't click through the ad directly. But if you're referring to the display ad that kind of accompanies that, then absolutely we measure any click-throughs there. We measure impressions, of course, any direct gifts. But again, usually with these programmatic top of funnel type of advertising, the impact you're going to see is on those bottom of funnel channels like email, like search, and even direct mail and other channels as well.
I think to answer Teddy's question there.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Teddy, do platforms require a certain level of quality in the video ads? I'm assuming I can't make an ad with my iPhone in the basement and have it run on Hulu.
You
Well,
can.
you'd be surprised, actually.
You can.
Yeah, you actually can.
A lot of our spots, a lot of our team, when I say a video team goes into the field, they're going to the field with their iPhones and taking a lot of that video. And as long as it's clear and it has good sound and the imagery is solid, we can then use that to go up. It's just a matter of making sure that it's a quality video from the start, regardless of what media or what device was used to record it.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. Oh, Preston, go ahead.
I was going to say, so yeah, it accepts MP4s. The only exception is .mov files that require higher quality, specifically for like Hulu. But for a lot of CTV placements, it could be like we're talking just like a video from your iPhone that's good enough quality.
Let's see, Melissa, are you targeting existing donors, contacts, or using CTV for acquisition? So you can do both, right? CTV can be used absolutely for acquisition, and it works really, really well for your current existing house file, for upgrading folks, for moving them up the funnel to mid-level, for converting them to sustainers. All of that kind of stuff works extremely well, but it can also, again, be used for acquisition, especially when you're trying to kind of reach new audiences and diverse audiences as well. It's really great for that. All right, should we move on to the techie portion?
All right, so yeah, I'll walk through how data is collected and what reporting looks like. So we'll start with the tracking pixel. It's that small snippet of code that's placed on your website. And I'm sure you're familiar with your Google Analytics tag that allows us to capture information about your visitors, how they browse, if they've converted, what types of ads they've clicked on to get to the website, and their conversion path. So that is how we're capturing the information, and just really at the core of what we're talking about. So for any programmatic campaign, there will be two different pixels, one for traffic and one for conversion. The traffic pixel is placed on every page of your site and will identify website visitors, which is important for both retargeting and modeling. And the conversion pixel has what we call dynamic parameters to capture the transaction specifics like transaction ID, gift frequency, gift amount, and even the form ID. And we can create audiences based on this conversion pixel. So for example, we can have an audience segment of one-time online donors based on the pixel that is automatically updating, and we can target that segment with a sustainer ask. Another example, we can take the people who have donated monthly based on the pixel and create a modeled or lookalike audience for prospecting new sustainers. So we use these not just for reporting, but for targeting as well. So a common question we get is, so how can you track this type of performance from a television exposure? Like we said before, you can't click or donate from your TV. So how are we pulling that together? And the answer is it's called a household graph. And really all that means it's identifying all of the devices frequently seen on the same Wi-Fi. So, televisions, mobile phones, tablets, smart speakers, just everything. When a device is seen on the same Wi-Fi, especially on nights and weekends, you likely live there. So this allows us to see that, if you saw an ad on Hulu, then later we're exposed to a display ad on your mobile device, and then later converted on desktop. And that's a very common conversion path. We are then able to track each exposure on each device and understand that path to conversion more clearly. So similar to any other fundraising effort, it's key to identify the campaign KPIs. So for most programs, we are tracking and optimizing towards return on ad spend and maximizing conversions. And for sustainer specific campaigns, we are optimizing toward increasing that sustainer percentage and also improving the net cost per monthly donor. And since we can pull a conversion lift study, like I've mentioned, we can see the impact on other channels as well. And for pilots and branding campaigns, we're also looking at the impact on brand metrics. So for this, we run a brand lift study alongside our digital campaigns to measure metrics like awareness, favorability, consideration, ad recall, recommendation, that are not as conversion focused, but just give a better picture of how well your CTV campaign is generating awareness and responding and resonating with people. And we're able to see the lift not just at the campaign level, but also by audience tactic and creative strategy. And like everything else, we're tracking this in real time. Mm-hmm. So the brand lift study will also give what the lift is by demo, so age and gender. So for example, like if you're wanting to appeal to more of a younger audience, then we can clearly see if your campaign and which creative is having any effect on that age group. So, I mean, overall, we can see not only what the conversion lift is on other channels, but the impact on awareness you're having on specific audiences and demos.
Yeah, so perfect timing Q&A. And I think we went over most of the questions that were around how we measure the results, but feel free, if there's anything unclear, feel free to type it in. Again, you can email me or LinkedIn me after to ask questions. But let's go through some of them too, and we'll talk about budget as well. Can we link her footprint? I think this was in reference to Rebecca in that example on DRTV with her footprint on internet and her footprint in direct mail event. Preston?
Yeah, so Simeo will have that data on that individual, like Rebecca in this case. They'll see if she had donated through direct mail or digital, and that's a common audience strategy we use. Like if they've only donated through digital or both direct mail and digital, we'll compare that performance and allocate spend to the best performing segment. So we are able to track which people are donating in which channels and adjust our targeting strategy based on that.
Yep. And again, Simeo use it to model for the right audience that we're looking to reach, right? So that's just some clarification on what that is. I know there were some slides on it, but I know it can get a little confusing. So let's see, Charlotte, can you see if the whole ad was viewed? So again, you can't skip or click through these ads. So actually, like 97% are fully viewed unless someone, turned off their TV or something like that, right?
Right. And even then though, Adva, I've noticed that if I turn off my Fire Stick and I come back, it'll just start back up.
Oh yeah.
Off, right? So they're very determined. As I said, I've seen a lot of Shriners spots lately.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, they're out there and doing great.
And interestingly, I've never seen my spot in real time.
Oh, that's interesting. Huh, okay.
Do we want to answer a couple of the budget questions? Because a few of them are pretty similar.
Yes, let's do that. All right, so budget. For normally what we do is a 3-month pilot. So that's usually the budget's around 100,000. And that will usually include the creative. So again, we have in-house experts, video producers that are experts in creating these spots and, you know what we're testing and what works and what doesn't and all of that. That's usually, if you have hopefully good footage in-house that we can play with. And that also includes, the media buy and our time and all of that. And then after that, if we prove that it's successful, so that's kind of an initial bigger investment to make sure that this is going to work for you, then we would have an evergreen kind of always on approach. And we would make recommendations based on what we saw in that pilot for a longer term, bigger budget. Depending on whatever the goals are.
Yeah, so you do tend to budget in terms of the number of impressions that you're going to be getting, not by, well, $100,000 will buy me 50,000 spots or pieces of inventory, right?
Right.
These campaigns include almost soup to nuts. So for us, it included also sending out emails and all of the retargeting and all of the. And that was included in that fairly low baseline cost. And again, because we had a lot of assets already, it was less expensive. But compared to DRTV, which is when you put up an expense for DRTV, you have to commit to, if you've put $1 million in spend, that goes straight to advertising. And then you have to use different methods to convert donors. This is different and it's a lot less expensive. And it's a lot easier way for people to get brand exposure and improve your digital program, quite frankly, if you've got the $100,000 to spend for a 3-month pilot.
Yeah.
Preston, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so for every pilot, we have a goal return on ad spend for the whole program. It's usually 0.7 to 1.1, and again, that's not direct revenue. That's mainly view through or indirect revenue. But so we typically see around like a 0.8, 0.9 return on ad spend, and then at the end of the pilot, we can also give that brand lift study that I mentioned before and conversion lift metrics to see how well you are lifting other channels such as email, Bing, Facebook.
All right. Other questions? Looks like we have a few and we have a few more minutes. So we'll try to get to as many as we can here. And again, feel free to reach out if you want to follow up or talk through, answer questions, whatever. Happy to chat. All right, Rupa, is conversion value for a CTV campaign measured based on a specific time period? For example, 60 days after that is seen, or is there a different strategy?
So for our DSP, in all of our accounts, it's a 30-day attribution window. So if someone has seen the ad or been exposed to that or clicked on the ad, and then they converted either directly on the website or through search, within 30 days, then it is attributed back to the programmatic campaign.
Okay. Let's see, does a sustainer ask perform better than a one-time gift ask in CTV? I'm assuming you will still receive one-time gifts associated with this campaign.
Yep. So we still do, the majority of donations will be one-time donations even with the sustainer ask, but we have seen with sustainer specific campaigns that sustainer percentage increase. Like we've typically see like a 5% sustainer percentage, and then with a specific sustainer ask, it can jump up to about over 10%.
Cool.
Nick, did you want to answer this question or no? Does sustainer ask perform? Oh, we just answered that. I'm so sorry.
Oh, yeah.
And can the media buys be regionalized? Yes, they can.
Yes, they can. Are we provided any of the information of connected TV audience that is targeted address, email, phone?
No, so Well, with this, like no PII is included in any of our reports. It's completely private, and we have to do that for privacy. Now, what we could do is provide a transaction report that gives the transaction ID of everyone who's converted during the campaign, and then on your end, you can do a matchback analysis to see who has converted during that time period.
That said, what's really cool about our trade desk instance and connection with Simeo, our co-op and modeling efforts is that anonymously all of the interaction data that we are compiling through all of the ad interactions is being fed back. All that exhaust data is being fed back into the models. So as you keep going, the models become smarter and smarter. And that's something really unique to our setup and very exciting. Let's see. What is the general CPM, Preston?
So for a CTV program, which includes CTV, online video, and display, we're looking at a combined goal CPM of $17.
And, ooh, how many impressions would a typical pilot have? Boy. Many millions?
Yeah.
I mean,
I would
it
say a couple
depends.
million.
Yeah. It depends on how long you're running it, but yeah, over a 3-month period.
Yeah.
We got 6 million over a 3-month period.
Yeah, it's usually about 6 to 8 million is what we typically see.
Yeah. And of course, we're not just looking at impressions, right? Joanne, you want to talk to that? Or you're nodding? I was just going to say.
No, I was nodding in agreement.
Oh,
that
okay.
you get
Great.
$6 to $8 million dollars. No, 6 to 8 million impressions.
Right.
Over the pilot period. And we, in full transparency here, our pilot period, we budgeted $200,000 for it.
Yeah.
And
So
we got some lift from the Beagles. They were very helpful.
All right, let's see what else. 2 more minutes. Let's see. Do you attribute 100% of revenue to CTV when a transaction occurs within a 30-day window of an impression, even if the conversion is through a different channel?
So this is all based on last touch. So like if someone was exposed to a CTV campaign and then converted like through a display banner, then what was be attributed in terms of last touch would be to the display campaign. Now we could see first touch attributed revenue as well, and we provide that to clients as well. So if they were first served the CTV ad, then later converted on display, we can show yes, that is the revenue attributed as first touch attribution compared to last touch.
Yeah, and I think, oh, go ahead, Joanne.
Oh, I was also going to add that this is something that we wrestle with internally at HSUS, where if someone does come in 30 days later, can we attribute them to the CTV ad? And I think that depends, and it's something where you really need to work very closely again with your analytics partners to determine what is your lift. Someone may respond to a mail piece 30 days later, but you know that they did because of Simeo Cloud, you know that they were in the awareness part of that funnel, that they were served that spot. But it's not always, you can't attribute 100% to everyone, especially if they don't come back to it for months and months.
Yeah, and that's where we're reaching time, but that's where we'd want to discuss, there's different models of measuring attribution. There's time decay, there's, linear, there's, first and last. So we'd want to talk through and make sure that we're all on the same page as far as how we're measuring results. But thank you all so much. We're at time. Really, really appreciate this. Thank you, Joanne, for joining us. Thank you, Preston and Nick, and appreciate all y'all joining. And let us know if you have any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.